Right then, so we are a week away until Anthony Joshua fights Andy Ruiz for a second time. He shouldn't have lost to him. He was generally perceived as a bit of a B-level heavyweight, somebody who was very capable but not spectacular, and was as much as a 10-1 underdog, and was basically supposed to get steamrolled by Joshua in his American debut. Now, it certainly looked that way in the third round, and then, oh dear, it went all completely wrong. Now, the implications for this rematch are absolutely massive. If Anthony Joshua can win, then he can still possibly go on to be the heavyweight of this generation and go down in the history books as a heavyweight great. If he loses to the same guy 2 times on the trot, the chance of him becoming a great heavyweight or going down as one is next to nil. Now, weights have been a big subject regarding this rematch. What are they going to weigh? Both of these guys, I think, are going to be lighter. Ruiz has said possibly no more than 8 pounds, which does away with all these "he's super skinny" theories. Certain pictures that were taken of Ruiz, I think, just made him look skinny. You know, the kind of angles that a lot of girls do to make themselves look a bit slimmer. They were perhaps taken of Ruiz and were a bit misleading, basically. He was 268 in the first Joshua fight. If he is still 260 in the rematch, you know, that is still a big lump. But that's very good, because look how good he did in that first fight. From Ruiz's perspective, he doesn't really want to change too much because of how well he did. Just a little bit more conditioning, a little bit more stamina, try and be a little bit more assertive, and boom, he has got a great chance of repeating what he did in June. It is Anthony Joshua who needs the big change. Now, for me, his peak poundage is probably about 242. The early 240s to mid 240s, kind of similar to Lennox Lewis, and of course he's got similar dimensions to the great Lennox Lewis. I think he was 242 for his unification fight against Joseph Parker. And he's going to need that trimmer build as a foundation to support the kind of fight he needs to fight against Ruiz here. Surely with McCracken, he has been working on controlling things at a distance, caution, and then try and lock him down when he gets inside. He needs to go back to the basics. He needs to stick with straight punches. And I think kind of try and deliver a blend between boxing and punishing. Joshua's build isn't made for skirting around the ring and popping the jab like Larry Holmes. Even if he reduces in weight, he's got a certain musculature around the shoulders and the biceps, which is all to do with power. He just needs to try and be a little bit neater and be a little bit more with it when it comes to backing up, jabbing as you step back, moving him around with the left hand, and then locking him in when he gets in. He can win this fight by being basic, by being like Vladimir Klitschko. Now, we don't want to see that because Joshua has been a very exciting fighter because of the fact he's knocked people out. We don't want to see him regress into some safety first guy like Vladimir did. Now, Vladimir, of course, used to be very aggressive in the early stages of his career. He used to throw a lot more leather. When he got beat by Lamont Brewster, which was weirdly a very similar loss to AJ's against Ruiz. I think it went about 7 rounds as well. He floored Brewster first, then he got floored himself, and then he ran out of gas. So there's a lot of parallels there. Manny Stewart was with Vladimir at the time, and from then on they developed a very safety-first, cautious Klitschko who was ultimately much more effective. Now, that could prove to be the case with Joshua as well. Maybe that's the way forward. After all, a lot of fighters say it's all about the W. I don't care how I win. That may be the way forward. But to try and train that into who I feel is more of a natural fighter than a boxer in a period of just a few months after losing and dealing with the impact, the psychological impact of loss, that is a lot to ask for. Now, a lot of people have said that Joshua needs to fight like he did against Joseph Parker. You know, just keep it on the outside. But that is really misleading. Parker was complicit in letting himself getting outboxed at range. There was a period, I think, once in the 6th where he actually tried to go for it, and then the referee oddly just separated them. the one moment where it looked like the fight may catch fire. The reason Joshua looked more effective like that is because Parker let him. He didn't really want to get stuck in. He might have just thought, right, I'll just last the distance and that's good enough for me. Ruiz does not fight like that. It's actually more dangerous with Ruiz's style to be on the outside. He has to come forward. He's got short limbs. He has to get inside. That's where he seeks his salvage. To the body, to the head, make the longer arms miss, and boom, I'm at home. So he is always going to be pressing. So comparisons with Parker need to go. Some people also say he needs to fight like he did against Povetkin, but that's not a particularly great example either. Alexander Povetkin was arguably winning that fight until the old man started to tire and his ambush attack stopped working. He was hitting Joshua with a lot of shots, and it was more so just because of Joshua's firepower and youth that he really won that fight, rather than the technical niceties. Yeah, Paulie Malignaggi picked up on things like he was jabbing him to the body to keep him occupied, that opened him up for the right hand, but really Povetkin started to run out of steam after doing so well. Ruiz isn't like that. He is a subtle, come forward counter puncher. He tries to make you bite, he does, he takes a little lean back, and boom, 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 comes in with very quick counters. McCracken needs to have accounted for that. And as good as as best as he can, he needs to have tried to have drilled into Joshua a game plan to offset that, which I think, as many people are saying, is just keep it basic. Now, with Ruiz, he goes into this rematch with the belief that, of course, he knows he can win. He goes in with the psychological edge, and it is his belief that Joshua cannot box on the back foot. That is the reason why he wanted to fight Joshua over the other two guys. He felt his style is perfect for him. And in a recent Gloves Are Off between Joshua and Ruiz, Ruiz said, when he was asked actually, who wins if you fight Joshua? 10 times out of 10. And with that cheeky little grin he has, he looks like a baby who's got a goatee. He just said, yeah, I win 10 times. And he seems so grounded and so just mentally in such a good place right now. I feel it is all on Joshua to show that he can really adapt. It really is on Joshua to show us that he can stick to the basics, that he can be more of a boxer than a fighter. Because Ruiz is going into this fight, I feel, with all the momentum. And usually when a fight gets closer, you see the odds start to shorten. You hear other people starting to give Joshua more credit, shout in his case a little bit more. But for me, the closer the fight has got, the more people I feel are just saying, gun to my head, if you have to ask me now and you force me to ask, or rather, if you force me to tell who's going to win, it is going to be Andy Ruiz. And it's because it wasn't a fluke, it was a beatdown. And if you go down as early as the first round, Ruiz was forcing Joshua to give up ground. He knew how to make him uncomfortable. He was pushing him around the ring. He was using his low center of gravity and using a kind of stab jab to the body that you see Mayweather use to make him give ground and just generally be uncomfortable. And then there is always that risk with Joshua as well. Can he refine his instincts? Because his instinct for the first fight, when he got him hurt, was to just go for the knockout. It's in his nature. That's why I say Joshua is more of a fighter than a boxer. And the first combination was delivered very nicely. It was a short right uppercut, left hook. We've seen Joe Louis throw it many times back in the day. But the follow-up was much wider. The legs went wider. He went whoomph, went for a similar combo, not as accurate, and Ruiz saw it coming. All things considered, how quickly this rematch has come about, the fact that Anthony Joshua has to learn so much, and I feel box a little bit unnatural in a way than what is his regular style. And with Ruiz going in with the psychological edge, he is going to be trying to overthrow what he expects from Joshua. He expects a more cautious Joshua, who is going to just try and use the more basic punches and try and at least see signs of distress from Ruiz before he starts really unloading with the bombs. Ruiz knows that, and he's going in with the belief that he can win, knowing he can win, with the belief that Joshua cannot box on the back foot. He is going to be forcing his way in and trying to, as Paulie Malignaggi sometimes says, cause panic in the opponent. And again, if you have to ask me, not so much gun to my head with myself. I've got to give it to Ruiz to slowly break Joshua down. Joshua may be ahead. He may appear to be exerting control over this one in Saudi. But I think over 12 rounds, another one of Ruiz's strengths is he is so patient in there. He will take his time. He will wait. He will slip the jab. He will wait until he can get in a very big one. And then as soon as he sees Joshua have an issue, he will absolutely unload with everything he has got. And another point here. Joshua's biggest victory over Vladimir Klitschko. That, of course, was a massive up and down fight. But there's a difference. Even though Joshua looked out at times, he went forward with the belief that Vladimir would eventually tire. He later said this. He knew that he would get his second wind. Vladimir, while he was able to crack Joshua, he wasn't able to put Joshua in a dark place like Ruiz was. Ruiz was able to do it by stylistically hounding Joshua, not letting him off the hook, throwing a lot of punches and making him miss. If you watch the last knockdown of the first fight, Ruiz just takes a little step back, makes Joshua miss, and then boom, 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 hits him. And Joshua was shaking his head like, part of it was not just how hurt he was, but he was just like, I can't get to grips with this guy. He is reading me and he is punishing me every single time. It may be a little bit more difficult for Ruiz this time. It may not come in the third round, but I think over 12 rounds, he's going to be assertive, he's going to be patient, he's going to make it happen again, and he's going to stop Joshua around the 10th round.